Okay, while the winter winds howl, they melt, freeze, melt, freeze. This is a really disturbing story out of the far north. Once a Northie, always a Northie. My heart will always be in Yukon and with First Nations people there. This is from CBC North and www.cbc.ca today. Almost nobody's favorite, Stephen Harper, hails start of Inuvik's road to resources. Inuvik or Inuvik. Posted today. This is very disturbing. Here's Harper marking the start of the Tuktoyaktuk highway construction. You can watch the vid if you care to. Prime Minister Stephen Harper is in Nunavut, Northwest Territories, NWT as we call it up north, today to mark the start of construction of the country's, that's Canada, first highway to the Arctic Ocean. Harper says the all-season road to Tuktoyaktuk will realize the vision John Diefenbaker had in the 1960s, connect the Arctic to the west of Canada. Not exactly, and hardly for the same reasons, hardly the same agenda, if one knows one's Canadian history. Perhaps there are parallels, but you know. There's Harper greeting workers in Nunavut after an event marking the start of construction on the highway. Here's a quote from Harper. Prime Minister Diefenbaker knew then what our government is undertaking today. Constructing a highway will, quote, I'm going to quote, air quotes, will improve the lives of people living in the North for generations to come, facilitating economic development, creating jobs, and enabling cost-effective, safe, and reliable transportation of goods to and from northern communities, he told, end of air quote. He told a gathering at the Midnight Sun Recreation Complex in Nunavut. 8 facts about the highway. You can click on this. The new road will connect the town of Nunavut with the hamlet of Tuktoyaktuk, which for generations this connection could only be made in winter over an ice road. In fact, I used to work for a reindeer farm in Alaska, and we actually got our breedstock, our bulls, from Tuktoyaktuk. And they drove them in almost like an old cattle drive over the ice road and then truck them into Alaska. But anyway, the new road will connect the town of Inuvik with the hamlet of Tuktoyaktuk, but it's about more than linking two isolated communities. It's the road to resources, said Kurt Weinman as he set up a backdrop of heavy equipment for the Prime Minister's visit. It's being called that forever. Well, I never heard that phrase, actually. Hopefully we can relook at all the oil companies and get back to our gas and get our community sustainable. Right. From a First Nations perspective, hardly. Wayman runs one of the companies building the $300 million highway. The territory is on the verge of signing a contract for the bulk of the construction work with Northwind Industries and E. Gruben Transport. Know that name? I do. Any offshore drilling is still years away, thanks God. But the winter road means jobs for some, right? Right now. Well, jobs are good. To a degree. Mickey, probably Ipana, says that's huge. She'll have 4 years of steady work hauling gravel on the highway with Northwind. Well, hauling resources on the highway is good. It's all in how one takes the story. I think it's just a stepping stone to opening up in the north, getting maybe oil and gas projects up again, he says. A lot of help for the families that were struggling for the past couple of years. The gravel road will stretch 140 kilometers over tundra and permafrost. The federal government is paying for 2/3 of the project. Some Northwest Territory MLAs are concerned that won't be enough. Daryl Delaney is the MLA for Range Lake in Yellowknife. This is the ice road that currently exists. He says cost overruns can take away from other projects, and if that means taking away from the hospital, that should concern people. Whoops. Okay. Okay, meanwhile, now one could say maybe the spirits or the ancestors or the land doesn't want that built, because look what happened in Iqualuit. Iqualuit Mare. I've never seen winds like that, ever. Which is saying a good deal if you live up in the far north. Okay, CBC News, posted today. It's interesting sidebar. This used to be a shed, wrote Joey Flowers, who posted this photo on Twitter. Credit to Joey Flowers. The mayor of Iqualuit says a storm that has damaged roofs, buried cars in snow, and sent 2 people to hospital for carbon monoxide exposure was the worst he has seen in almost 4 decades on Baffin Island. So this is a long way from Nunavut and Tuktoyaktuk. Still, it's the far north. Still, it's the home of First Nations people anciently. Still, the Baffin Island, the whole north, the Arctic Ocean will be affected, of course, by offshore drilling. So it's interesting to me that these things are happening consecutively. John Graham said, I'm coming up on 39 years in Iqualuit, and I've never seen winds like that, ever. Small winds were tossed about, construction debris was flying, and windows were broken as wind gusts reached 150.1 kilometers an hour in the Nunavut capital. Canadian North cancels Iqualuit flights. Very, very rare. Unprecedented windstorm. With sustained winds at 111 kilometers an hour, CBC meteorologist Christy Clemenhaga said the storm was close to hurricane strength, something that came as much as the rest of Canada was dealing with its own weather-related problems. So we see all sorts of weird things happening with the, quote, Arctic vortex, unquote, while they're preparing to inflict more disaster on the north through drilling. Oh my gosh. Anyway, here's a photo of a car buried in a snowdrift, courtesy of Kenny Bell. All of this is more to think about in conjunction with what's going on our Earth. It's a very interesting story. It talks about life in the capital and how you think your storms were bad, eh? Very interesting. This is Two Wolves Out with some food for thought. Thanks for watching. Mitakuye, and we are all related.